What is the fastest way you have seen someone ruin their life? My sister's ex-fiancé got into a drunken argument with his new girlfriend and choked her to death in their apartment. A few years after my sister broke up with him, he spent a significant amount of time in prison. I think he just got out after about 15 years. Impulsive decision to street race their friends on a country road. They hit a tree and managed to kill everyone in the car. From a bad decision to death was less than a minute. I didn't so much see it happen, as I got to comfort the best friend of one of the kids in the aftermath. Same. A kid in my class in 10th grade had the need for speed after getting his license, and his parents bought him a Mustang. Estimates put him at 120 mph on windy roads with 3 friends. He collided with a family of 4 in a car coming the other way head-on. 7 people died. The daughter from the family car miraculously was the only one to survive, at around 15 years old, and she was somehow relatively stable. She was out of the hospital in a week or 2 with minor surgeries. Her whole immediate family, mom, dad, brother, died in the blink of an eye. I wonder how she's doing nowadays. That was 12 years ago now. In my 20s, I had an LS1 Firebird, which was my dream car when I was 17 to 18. Every time I drove it, I thought about how that car would have killed me if I had actually owned it in high school. When I was a kid, we moved to Venezuela, and we rented a house from a guy who was on a trip to another city with his wife, his 2 daughters, and one of his daughter's fiancés. They got into some sort of accident, and he was the only one to survive. Your life can change in the blink of an eye.
A woman I worked with got her nursing license and got a job a month later, where I worked. She proceeded to steal a bunch of pills that day and was fired, losing her license. I can't even wrap my head around being intelligent and responsible enough to make it through that kind of schooling and then being dumb enough to do something like this on the first day. Surely, if that was the type of person she was, it would have been noticed earlier in her program.
You would, apparently, be surprised. I've worked with a lot of nurses, mid-levels, and physicians alike who made poor decisions. They are just people who went to school for something specific and put the work in. I've also seen multiple nurses and physicians lose their jobs due to diverting meds. I never understood why they just wouldn't get it from the street like everyone else. Edit. I don't normally edit comments, but multiple people have mentioned the fentanyl issues with street. When my experiences took place, wasn't nearly as common, and it certainly wasn't being pressed into fake pills to the extent that it is today. Hearing about accidental ODs due to unanticipated fentanyl exposure was vanishingly rare in my location during this time period. Just wanted to add some extra context. My roommate in the army got drunk and damaged a door in the barracks. He received an Article 15, essentially a fine, but he refused it and ended up in jail for a month or 2. While in jail, he took a swing at an officer, resulting in him being sent to federal prison. I lost track of him at that point. If he had simply signed the Article 15, he would have lost $150 but would have been fine afterwards. Never saw someone mess up their life that quickly before or since. Reminds me of a guy I knew in my unit. He passed out drunk in front of the barracks, and the military police tried waking him up to take him to his room, but he decided to fight them. They placed him in a holding cell to sober up, but he continued to resist and ended up urinating all over the walls. They decided to press charges, randomly drug tested him, and he tested positive for cocaine and steroids. I don't recall the exact outcome, but he was removed from the unit. I was tasked with cleaning his cell and involuntarily assigned to be a brig chaser. I accompanied him to a few appointments before they transferred him elsewhere. The guy could have simply gone to his room and slept it off, although he probably would have been caught eventually. Pound a bottle of Jack. Hop in car with girlfriend. Drive 100 miles per hour. Hit tree. Kill girlfriend. Breathe through tube for rest of life. Quadriplegic. He was 16 at the time. Serious question. Was he tried and convicted? If yes, did he go to prison? Do prisons have the ability to incarcerate a quadriplegic, or does the justice system just call the fact he's a quad a sufficient punishment?
There are hospital prisons that cater to individuals with unique disabilities and permanent medical conditions. They are generally low security, and one usually needs to have a significant issue to be placed in one.
I spent several years as a public defender. In cases involving severe medical conditions, the government tends to avoid incarceration due to the associated expenses and responsibilities. I had a client who was convicted of 9 bank robberies, including 5 where he physically brandished a gun at tellers. Before his arrest, he had been diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. Instead of prison, he he was placed on probation. 6 years later, he is still free and occasionally picking up new charges, now involving cashing bad checks. However, due to the cancer diagnosis, he continues to be placed on probation. The guy who ate a slug on a dare became paralyzed and eventually passed away several years later. My mom had an affair and left our family for her affair partner when I was a baby, thinking the grass was greener. However, it turned out that the guy she left for was a raging alcoholic who couldn't clean up his act. He pawned her jewelry for booze after losing his job, hired escorts, and caused a lot of trouble. It put my mom through hell. Eventually, he died of liver failure, leaving my mom alone. I believe the guilt and shame have caught up to her. I'm not angry anymore. She made a mistake, but it has been one of the biggest lessons in my life. Throughout my 35 years, my dad has never spoken one bad word about her. He's incredible, and I'm thankful every day that he raised my brother and me. Back when I was delivering pizzas in a fairly nice area, some kid shot me 6 times in the chest to steal my Camaro. Later, I found out this kid had a full ride at UF, was a straight-A student, and came from a very wealthy family. He had just started hanging out with a bad crowd, I guess. He got caught when he brought the car home, and the next morning, it was on the news. Surprisingly, his own dad turned him in. Despite some wicked scars, I made a full recovery.
I'm glad you're alive, but, man, 6 rounds to the chest, and you made a full recovery. That's incredible.
Yeah, I got lucky. Every round missed my heart and lungs, and none hit any major blood vessels. 1 round came close but was deflected when it hit my sternum. 3 of them were in my left shoulder, which occasionally gives me trouble in cold weather. But otherwise, yeah, no real lasting effects. I do get some stares and remarks when I go to the beach, though. A guy from my high school went hill jumping, speeding in a hilly area outside DC. When he hit a steep hill fast enough, it acted like a ramp, and he ended up flying over a hill into the back of a car stopped behind a bus. The mom and kids in the car were killed. In the late 90s, my friend took another one of our friends to a hill in our town to do this. He flew over the hill, and on the other side, a car was backing out of a driveway. He swerved and had to drive through someone's front yard between their house and a tree at 45 to 50 miles per hour, with about 6 inches of clearance on either side. He pulled it off, and our friend in the passenger seat went on to form one of the biggest bands of the aughts and tens. This is one of the most terrifying things to me. You can be just going about your day, not doing anything wrong, and some idiot comes flying out of nowhere and kills you and your kids. I was there, early to mid-80s, right? My bus drove up behind them not too long after the accident happened, just as the first police arrived and were covering the back of the bus and car with tarps. That's all I saw before the bus driver made all of us put our heads down airplane crash style until she could back up and get the bus turned around. A friend of mine in freshman year of college took all the money his dad had given him for college and bought a ring to propose to his girlfriend, who was a high school senior. She said she wanted to wait until she graduated, which he interpreted as a rejection. In a fit of anger, he threw the ring into a nearby lake, hoping his dad would be so happy about the engagement that he would reimburse the money. Instead, the ring was gone, and he had to drop out of college because he couldn't afford it. The last I heard, he was working at a convenience store in town. Even though she initially said to wait, she later tried to get back together with him, and he declined, stating that she wasn't interested when he proposed, and he believed she wouldn't be interested again. He had a full scholarship to a very good university that his family couldn't have afforded otherwise. However, he started playing World of Warcraft 60 hours a week and got expelled halfway through his second year. This is from someone who wrote into an advice column, and it has stuck with me for these many years. The guy wrote about how he had begged his wife to swing with the couple next door. She was dead set against it, but he pestered her about it for a couple of years, and she finally, reluctantly, agreed. When the time came, the guy was very disappointed to find the neighbor's wife was not as tight as he had anticipated. Meanwhile, his neighbor was giving his wife what looked to be an out-of-body experience. It made him extremely angry and resentful of his wife for enjoying it so much. I think he said something like, "I can't even look at her without wanting to punch her in the face." The columnist told him off and advised him to file for divorce. The guy wrote an update stating that a few months after the swinging occurred, the neighbors divorced, and his wife left him for the guy next door. They married soon after. He felt blindsided and betrayed. And well, friends, that was all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, let me know with a thumbs up so that YouTube can share these stories with more people. Remember to hit the bell icon to be the first to know when we upload a new video. See you next time.